Hello, guys. Welcome to another episode. Actually, the first episode this year of Engaging Influencers. And as we have kept it a new tradition, we are always having the best and the most exciting of guests. And today, some of you, of course, already saw the picture, the flyer stuff, and you are wondering when it's actually coming out. But we had to reserve something special to begin the year with. So I have an amazing guest. He will introduce himself, and I just ask you to hang in there because today will be one of those exciting 30 minutes plus of your life. So welcome to the show, bro.
Well, thank you very much.
All right, so let's start it this way. Your name?
My name.
Yes.
My name is Ian Konje.
Yeah. You're an entrepreneur, right?
Yes,
You're
yes, I am.
All right. Before we can actually go into the business and everything, yeah, we should still get to know you a bit more.
Okay.
So, where do you come from?
Is this originally or where do I stay?
Actually, where you stay? I
Okay.
think then we'll get to
Where I
the whole
come from.
background information.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I stay here in Lilongwe, the capital city of Malawi.
Yeah.
Originally, I'm from the north, so I'm from Zimba and Rumpi.
So both parents are from.
Yes, both parents are from the north.
That's awesome. So you grew up in Lilongwe or?
Yeah, I grew up in Lilongwe all my life actually.
Really?
I was born at Kamuzu Central Hospital.
Yeah.
And yeah, I grew up in area 18 and later on moved to area 47.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So primary.
So I started back in the day. There was a school called Bluebird in area 18, just by the corner there. So that's where I started my top class and preschool. After that, I went to Lilongwe Pentecostal Christian Church School, LPCCS.
Yeah.
Where I did standard 1 up to standard 7. So yeah.
Then was high school.
Secondary school. Yeah.
What did you get to do?
I did my secondary school at Marist Secondary School.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, for a moment,
Yeah.
you mentioned it, then it paused me like, okay, so you actually went to Marist.
Yeah, I was at Marist
So
from
some genius guy, yeah?
not genius. I think lucky is the word.
For you?
Yeah. Because I mean when you're there, yeah, I think it's more of luck. I mean, there are a lot of people who write entrance exams to get there. So
That's nice.
and a lot of brilliant people
Yeah.
at that. So I think definitely lucky.
Okay. So let's take it back still a little bit.
Yeah.
So you are the only one in your family. Have like siblings?
Yeah, so I'm firstborn of 4.
Oh.
So after me comes my brother. And then I have 2 younger sisters. Yeah.
I think now it also explains it.
What does it explain?
Like you have a very good reputation of just being well kept. Like the whole being firstborn, maybe.
Oh, add some responsibility.
Exactly.
Oh no, definitely. Yeah.
Honestly, I'm sure the younger ones must be blessed because honestly, that's a good.
Yeah, but I mean,
Role model.
I didn't enjoy being the only child. I was only there for 3 years and then another one came. So maybe if I had experienced being an only child, things would have turned out differently.
Are you sure? Okay, how different? For better or?
I mean, we'll never know.
But exactly. But me, I would never want to stay like years alone.
Yeah,
There has to be someone who, after you watch Monday Night Raw,
of course.
you have to go and try it out with.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. All right. So, getting into entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Is this something that you have always wanted, like ever since you were young? Was it a childhood dream?
Well, I wouldn't say it was a childhood dream because I think the term entrepreneurship only came to my knowledge just a few years ago.
For you?
Yeah, I mean, even if you ask people when they first heard the term entrepreneurship, it's I was also already, older as well. I don't think in any of our curriculums in primary or secondary we had that term or even ever heard of it.
That's true.
So I wouldn't say I knew about entrepreneurship, but what I did know is that I wanted to run my own thing.
Yeah.
So I think from a young age, just being able to explore what things I'm capable of doing and owning it, attaching a name to it, and then throwing it to the world was something that I always did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So at what age can you recall Like specifically studied to do something?
I think the age of 13.
That was young.
Yeah, 13.
Okay.
At the time, I mentioned I have two sisters.
Yeah.
So at the time, I had a sister, and there's this popular game called Monopoly.
Yeah, I think.
Are you good at it? Do you play it?
I love it.
Okay.
I love
Right.
it. I feel like the new generation is missing it.
Yeah.
Because Monopoly is part of a board game, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Exactly.
Definitely.
Those were the games that our parents made sure that
We
to
played.
maintain the smartness.
No,
sanity.
it's true. It's true. It's
Exactly,
true.
that to get on the table. And I'm really surprised most young people, they don't know how to play it, but
Yeah.
I loved it. Understood.
Yeah, so we had Monopoly at home, and one of the things I noticed about Monopoly is that depending on which version you get, there's a UK version and a South African version.
Yeah.
But if you have the South African version, you have our South African locations, you have South African rands, and all these other things. And so we used to play that game, and then I started to notice that there were certain business concepts that my little sisters and my brothers actually learned through Monopoly.
Wow.
So my brother at the time was about 10, 11, and he knew what partnerships were. He knew about, all these things.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, if these kids are this young and through this game they can actually learn business, then why don't we create a Monopoly, but a Malawian version that should help more young people, more kids play, because now they have places that they can relate to.
Yeah.
So at 13, I took, at the time I was using Microsoft PowerPoint.
Oh.
So I designed a Malawian version of Monopoly in PowerPoint, and I called it Monopoly. So MAL for Malawi, and then Monopoly at the end. And the idea was just, let's have a place where if somebody wants to buy a plot of land, they can, instead of buying a place in Santon, they can buy in Area 18 because they know it. They understand that maybe Area 10 is the more affluent side, and that's more valuable.
Yeah.
So we did that, added even beach plots at the time. So you could buy land like Mangochi, Salima, because we knew that that's what people would relate to.
Yeah.
So at the time, it was really just, okay, I think this is something that I can do. Let me make it. We designed it, had it printed, and it was just something that we played with at home. It wasn't for commercial use or anything like that. And the reason we didn't even try to commercialize it because we're like, hey, what if they sue us? What if Monopoly, comes knocking? And I'm 14 and I get arrested, something like that. So it was just something that, I think we started, I did, and then, that was it. It was just something we did for fun. So I think that's the earliest memory of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that somehow, like, planted a seed within you to say, I want to do this for a while or forever.
I think so. I think at the time it was really just, if you're met with a problem, just having the heart to find a solution to it.
Yeah.
So, that was the first encounter. I remember now the first business I ran was actually selling lollipops when I was at Marist. So Marist is a Catholic school, and it's a very strict Catholic school.
Everyone knows that.
Yeah, and so they were strict about everything, not just education, but the food as well. So we were only allowed to bring 5 foods. So biscuits, sugar, milk, sobo, and what was the third thing? I think salt. Those are the only foods that were allowed.
Wow.
And so if you needed snacks, you couldn't find them. If you needed sweets, you couldn't find them. So our idea was, why don't we start trading sweets? Because obviously demand and supply, because people can't have them, then the demand would be high. So I started, selling lollipops and everything like that. I mean, it was risky, illegal.
And that's the next thing I wanted to ask. How did you get them?
It was definitely very, very risky.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was a risk that was exciting. And so we did that. And I think that's what really planted the business, because they, dealing with suppliers, dealing with supply chain management, although we didn't know that's what it was called at the time.
Exactly.
You're also dealing with just, demand and supply. I remember this was 2013, 14.
Yeah.
And I sold 1 lollipop Stumble for 500 kwacha. And someone was willing to buy it.
2014?
2014.
Someone was willing to pay 500.
Someone was willing to pay 500 kwacha for a lollipop. That was retailing at the time for 50. to 100 kwacha.
That was like profit for the whole week.
That was, I mean, it was super normal profits. I mean, I wish I ran a business that had such margins today, but it was really just being able to communicate that, look, this is the last lollipop in the whole school. You're not going to get any supply for the next 3 to 4 weeks. So if you don't get this one, then nobody else is going to get it. And he was willing to pay 500 kwacha. And what we did back then is we let people buy lollipops on loan. So they'll take the lollipops, eat them today, and then they'll pay back on visiting days, maybe month end and everything like that.
So visiting day was your best day on campus?
Visiting day was definitely the best day on campus.
The day get stacked. Wow.
Yeah. So no, I think that's the first. Should be the first type of business that I structured, that I ran. Yeah, that was 2014. So yeah, around 13, 14 years old.
That's good. What I also like about it, now you are, of course, we're going to talk more about it.
Yeah.
IK Foods, and then we're talking about Oasis Brands.
Yes.
Which is now like, international stuff. But now the most interesting thing is how it all started with sweets.
Yeah.
That's very interesting, because most people in entrepreneurship or business, they kind of overlook the place where you start so small.
Yeah.
From the list of things that people can never imagine.
True.
You could actually learn a few things from those experiences. So probably now, my question would be, what are the 3 lessons that you learned from trading sweets?
From trading sweets.
Yeah.
I think I've already mentioned the first one being just forces of demand and supply. I think when you're venturing into any business, you need to have a clear understanding of what your demand is, current demand and future demand. Because sometimes you're selling products or services that might not have demand now, but you understand that there are certain trends that will happen and the demand will come. So demand and supply. I think the second thing is being able to understand, as you said, baby steps.
Yeah.
And so someone might look at selling lollipops as something that is very small, very useless. We're called vendors, and things like those.
And the way you actually talked about the marketing concept, that's really vendor.
No, definitely.
Pro Max.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But then the baby steps came into the understanding that the reason we started selling lollipops is because we're trying to raise money.
Yeah.
The reason we're trying to raise money was because we wanted to buy internet dongles. So I think at the time, the only way you could access internet was through, Madongo and everything like that.
Exactly.
And when you looked at like our pocket money and everything, we couldn't afford it. So like, okay, let's start, trading lollipops and this and that. I remember at the time, our school fees was about like 50,000 kwacha, right? And from selling lollipops that term, we made like 65,000. So
more than your fees.
More than the fees. So it shows you just the extent to how big the operation, was, back then.
It was an empire of sweets.
It was. So being able to understand the baby steps that you have to take to reach where you go, even if it's not in the right or the most luxurious business.
Yeah.
That was the second lesson I learned. And the third lesson we learned was leverage. Leverage in the sense of being able to use the resources that you have at your disposal for your benefit. So at the time I was in Form 1 and Form 2, right? And obviously I can't keep sweets and everything like that.
Yeah.
So what we did is we leveraged just personal connections. So I had a cousin who was in like Form 3, Form 4, seniors and everything like that. So if they have lollipops or if they have the things, they'll not be penalized as much, or they understand just how to keep them and hide them and everything like that.
Yeah.
So would leverage off of, their experience being at school, their connections and everything like that. Would also leverage off of just, people who are traveling out of campus. When I go to Douala, they've been given an exit, would give them the money to actually buy the stuff. And when they're coming, they're not searched because this guy was sick.
Yeah.
So things like that. And it basically just stuck with you because, with leverage, now you can access connections that you didn't have before. You can grow and basically operate at a multiple of what you actually are. So I think those are the 3 lessons that I learned during that time.
That was deep. All right. So let's move ahead a little bit.
Okay.
College.
College, yes.
Where did you get to do your college?
So I did funny thing. So after we graduated at Marist Secondary School, we were given what other people call a gap year.
Yeah.
Or walodi, basically.
Exactly.
Now, unfortunately, I mean, if you go to a Malawian university, you know that closures, delays are going to be part of your each and every day, life. So in our year, we ended up having a delay because the cohort that was there before had a strike.
Yeah.
So I ended up spending 2 years in my gap year.
Wow.
So graduated in 2015, only went to university in 2017. So that left me 2 years at home, just, chilling and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I decided to do was, okay, how do I spend my time differently? Because I believe that 2 years was just a long time to just rest. Yeah, it's too long. It's too long of a time. So I used that time to basically just explore skills, explore talents, just explore the world. I mean, it's the world. You have to explore it.
Exactly.
So the first thing I did is I went and did a course at Technobrain. For those who are familiar, back in the day.
Yeah, I think it used to be like the top institute for training and stuff.
Yeah, it was. It was also just the trending place.
Yeah.
Because everybody was just going there just because it's Technobrain. So I did a course with like graphic design at Technobrain.
They're also playing graphics courses.
Yeah, they were actually. But about 3 months. Yeah, 3-month course. After that, I was like, okay, that's not enough. So I went to Sanweka Tech Companions, if you know it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the radio ads are quite everywhere.
Yeah.
There I did videography, photography, and cinematography. Yeah. That was about like maybe 3-4 months as well.
Wow.
And then after that, there was still time left. So I went and did business management at MCA. Did a diploma, about 6 to 8 months as well. So by the time I was going to start at the University of Malawi, Chanko, I think I'd done like 3 certificates.
Wow.
And going on to my fourth one. Yeah. So Technobrain, Sanweka, MCA, and then Chanko.
And already I can see the relevance, like.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Already they were critical.
Yeah.
Actually, not what you're doing now.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So moving on to Chanko.
Yeah, so I went to Chanko and I studied economics, Bachelor of Arts in Economics. So before you'd attain an economics degree by specialization through taking a Bachelor of Social Science. But then they revised it, and our year was the first year they actually introduced Bachelor of Arts in Economics. So we went for the first cohort, 2017 up until 2022. So I graduated last of last year. Yeah.
Wow. Last of last year, that should be 2022.
Yes, 2022.
Okay. So before we can move on to like life after college.
Yeah.
So the time like college for you was just school, or you are still having some business aspirations as you're there?
All right. So I think when I started university, the idea, as with also most people, is that I'll get a degree, I'll start to work. Eventually, I'll quit work and start a business.
Yeah.
So that was the mentality or the thought process I had back then. And then when I was in first year, I met a very good friend of mine. His name is Kelvin. And Kelvin had spent his 2 years reading books. Wow. He had read all the motivational books, all the business books, Think and Grow Rich, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Warren Buffett. He had ingested everything.
Yeah.
And so every time we would chat, he would tell me about it. And that's actually where I got to learn about entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Now, essentially, when I went to study economics, my thought was that economics is actually business. So I thought that economics was entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Only to know that there's a thing called entrepreneurship and not economics. And so immediately, first year, I was like, okay, I'll still do my economics, but at the same time, I also try to figure out this thing called entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
So I think being able or being around, such people, such conversations, planted that seed. And I actively started looking for what are the opportunities? What are some of the things that are, out there? And in first year, so essentially what I'll do is try to combine economics, whatever we're learning in class, and then try to see, okay, how can I apply that elsewhere? And I remember one of the classes we had, we learned of an economic concept called comparative advantage. Now, what comparative advantage is basically a country like Malawi should focus on production using the resources that it's abundant in. So if Malawi has a lot of sugarcane, let it focus on making sugar, export it, because it will obviously gain higher quality and the best prices.
Exactly.
So I learned about comparative advantage, and I said, okay, what are some of the things that Malawi is abundant in? That way, if I start a business in that area, then I should compete internationally. So around the same time, I stumbled upon an article that was talking about the baobab fruit, Malambe in Chichewa. And this article was basically saying that, Malambe has all these health benefits. It's abundant in Southern Africa. And I was like, dude, I know Malambe. Malambe di makula kunsiga. Freezes, exactly.
That's
freezes.
The summer.
Growing up, that's all we had.
Yeah.
And then 3 months later, it just disappears and we see it again next year.
That's true.
So I was like, okay, it seems this thing is a superfruit. Others actually do call it a superfruit. And countries in the West are praising this fruit. And yet we have abundance of it. Actually, taro cyanide even goes to waste. People throw it away and stuff like that.
Exactly.
So I said, okay, why don't we find a solution for baobab so that even when it's not in season, people can still enjoy it. People can still, have it and everything like that. And the idea that came to mind was, okay, why don't we make a jam? Because juice is still there and clearly it's not solving the problem.
Yeah.
So why don't we find a product that people eat every day, once or twice a day? It can become part of a child's routine, teenager, adult, grown-up.
Yeah.
So jam made sense. Second question was, okay, how do you make jam from Malambe? It's not a fruit like mangoes or berries where it's like a solid type of thing.
Yeah.
So during the holiday, we went back, tried to find, different ways, and we eventually found a way of actually making jam out of, baobab. And so I took samples, took them to school, and let people taste them and get feedback. And when I did my assumptions, I thought that, okay, maybe 1 out of 10 people will actually like it because I thought it was an acquired taste.
Yeah.
But when doing the research, I actually found that, 6 out of 10 people actually loved it and, they wanted more of it. So I said, look, if nobody's going to do it, then I would do it. And so I think that was second semester, first year, I went and then registered the first company, which was Ian Konje Food Processors. And the idea at the time was that, look, if I tell anybody that I have a company, they won't believe me. So the only way is if I name the company after me, then they'll be forced to, believe that it's actually mine.
Yeah.
So IKFP was the first proper established or registered business. And it was started to process baobab into baobab fruit jam, and then, sell and distribute that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive. What was I thinking about it first? Yeah. And then back then, of course, one thing you have mentioned about, even when I look back to my time, I think association. Like people who are around you make you at the end of the day.
Yeah.
That's one thing. I wouldn't say I wasted my time, but I will admit that I did that business right away.
Yeah, of course.
But I remember most of us are just think about how to survive on campus.
Oh yeah,
how to make sure you get calculus right.
Correct.
To make it the second year.
Correct.
But then it's very impressive to know that even just the idea of actually knowing that I have to first register a company.
Yeah.
I approve.
Yeah, no, the idea was to, and I think it goes back to the mindset thing because in my head I was like, okay, how do I establish a company that allows my products to scale if I'm to export? Because the idea was, okay, I still have that article in mind. There are people who want this product. So I can't export if I'm not registered, and everything like that. So it was a no-brainer actually.
Get you. So still just trying to understand more of your college life.
Yeah.
While we're still at it, how did you spend your time in college? Was it just always thinking about business, doing business?
Surprisingly, I spent it all in the library.
For real?
So I was definitely, I mean, was still taking economics, and economics is a fairly difficult course to do. So I was always studying, always trying to compensate for, the business and the research and everything like that. So my time in the library would be split between doing schoolwork and, doing research. And I'll usually reserve the research for maybe Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. So I'll do research during the weekend, and then during the week, it was business as usual.
Yeah.
So I was definitely always in the library. Yeah.
I think that's something that I can point out.
Yeah.
Like with the discussion. Because one thing that I also noticed, I don't know if you noticed.
Yeah.
But there were a couple of hustlers back in college.
Yeah.
But I find, I don't know if it was the same for you, but most of them that I knew in my class were in business, they're struggling in school.
Yeah.
And some even got withdrawn.
Of course.
So from your experience as a young entrepreneur, what would you say are some of the challenges that young people get to face in business?
Well, I mean, you can't talk about business if you're not talking about any challenges.
Yeah.
Because there are challenges that come regardless of your age.
Yeah.
And then the challenges that are now specific to young people. When you're talking about general challenges, you have lack of access to capital, you have lack of access to markets, lack of access to the right team or to the right working human capital that you need. And then you have other problems that are specific to young people, such as just finding that work-life and school balance. Also just being able to cope with all the stress and all the things that come with it. So there's a large number of problems. Rather than talking about the problems, I think it's more important to talk about what are some of the solutions. And from my experience, because one of the things you have as a young person when you start early is you have time and you have the grace to fail, pick yourself up and start again.
True.
People who start their businesses when they're much older have a lot of other responsibilities when they're old.
Yeah.
So that means that they don't have the same level of room for error as the other people.
Yeah.
When you start a business and it fails, what's the worst that could happen, right? But if you have a family, if you have kids, if you have responsibilities and all these things, it becomes riskier and you have to play yourself and play all your cards right. So as young people, you have the time to be able to make those mistakes, number one. Number two, because you have the time, you can also do other businesses that can raise capital that you can then use to start your business. One of the things that you've learned is that your first business is not going to be your last business. Yeah, so I think a lot of people get too attached to the ideas of their businesses. One thing I've come to realize is that your first business is not your last business.
Yeah.
And this is very important because I see any business that you run as a stepping stone, right? As a activity that you can learn a few things. Now, in the world of business, there's certain principles that you need to learn and certain principles that you can learn either from reading a book, others go and do their masters in business administration. But as we all know, the best teacher is experience. One thing that I've realized is when you move from one business to the other, you get better at it. And the mistakes that you made in the previous business, you don't make them anymore.
Yeah.
So it took us maybe 3 to 4 years when I was running Ian Konje Food Processors to reach a certain milestone. When we went into Oasis Brands, it took us maybe 6, 7, 8 months to reach the same, distance traveled because we've learned through the process. I'm gonna show you now that as I start a third company or the fourth company, the work that has taken Oasis Brands 3 years, we'll do in 3 months. Only because we understand all the things that need to be done in a business. We understand everything from finding clients, prospecting, sales, all the systems and processes that you need to establish in your business.
Yeah.
So don't be scared to move on to the next business because there are things you've learned in the business you're running now that will help you in the next one. And, will help you grow and grow and grow. Another thing that I've realized is something that can be a solution to young people, is leveraging off of the opportunities that are now specific for young people. You see a lot of fellowships, you see a lot of trainings, a lot of programs that now even have an age limit. If I'll give an example, the Azisha Prize has a cap of 25, if not 24. So if you are above that age, then you can't even, participate, which means that it's targeted for the young person. It is built for the young person. Now you have a lot of initiatives that are providing access to capital for young people. You have the MSME order, that is an order by the government that stipulates that organizations should give procurement of up to, I think, 30% of all their supply to small, medium, and micro businesses. So they are trying their part and doing their best. It could be better, but they are indeed making it easier and easier for young people to run businesses. What we need to do is meet them halfway and then also be able to put in place all the things that are required to be able to establish a thriving business.
All right. So as we come towards the end of this amazing conversation, learning from you and your businesses, there's one thing that I want to really just understand. From your point of view. So one thing maybe that we didn't really tackle or look into as much is actually some of your wins aside from business. Because I understand you actually mentioned it about fellowships. Because you're a fellow.
Yes.
For some noticeable fellowships. So let's talk about personal development. From the experience that you have had being part of the fellowships. And you even spoke for TEDx.
Yes.
Which is something deep. For your information, I also applied.
But
ours is accessible. So congrats, honestly. It's massive
thank you
to actually be picked for that. But I believe you didn't just get to a point where they considered you for that. There's something that you started doing, that you started investing in yourself. So what can you say about personal development? From experience, how has it contributed positively to your leadership or to your growth?
So I think you raise a very important point. And I say that because from my experience, your business is basically a reflection of your personal development. In that most of the times when we're looking at business and we're looking at all these things, all we see are products and services moving, back and forth. But behind that, there are people. And when you improve yourself, that reflects on your business. So we might see other businesses increase in sales and all these things, but behind that is simply because there's somebody somewhere improving. So that was my first understanding, that your business is a reflection of you, number one. Number two, it was the understanding that what got me here is not what will get me to the next step. So one of the things that most of the times people get complacent, number one. Number two, also, people don't want to reinvent themselves. But somebody actually, I remember reading a quote that says that staying still or stagnation is a sign of dying. So just because you're stayed at the same position doesn't mean that you're growing. It actually means you're doing the opposite. You're dying. So what that basically means is that I'm constantly finding ways of reinventing myself, because I know that whatever achievement I've received now was not because of the work I've done now. It's because of the work I did 2 years ago. It's only now that I'm seeing the reflection. So you ask yourself, what now must I do today so that Ian in 2027 thanks me for the work I did today? Because that's only when the results will be shown. And the more long-term you think, the more you start to realize that you need to invest even more. Because if you ask yourself, what are the things that I need to do today so that Ian in 2040 thanks me? You now start to see that there are much more things that you need to do, right? So I believe personal development is very important, to my point. I personally am always looking for new sources of knowledge, right? My knowledge might be direct in the industry that I'm working in, so doing research, getting exposed into new industries. And because we are positioning Oasis Brands as a market leader, we constantly have to be at the verge of new technologies.
Yeah.
So we need to have an understanding of what is coming, an understanding of why it's important, and most importantly, how it can be applied in the context here in Malawi and in Africa at large. So even though I'm an economist, you'll find me attending developer conferences, you'll find me attending, human resources trainings, been in construction trainings and everything like that, only because I understand that what would get us to the next level is not what I know, but something else differently. So I'm constantly asking myself, what new piece of information do I need to get? Now, this is where the issue of leverage comes in, because if you have a network of people that have already been where you are trying to go to, they can tell you that, look, this is what you need to know. Here's where you can get it. But in the instance where you are the one that is leading in that industry, then you have to take the sacrifice of actually finding out what those things are.
Yeah.
And being able to shorten the period of time between you getting a piece of knowledge and actually implementing on it allows you to do that process faster. You do this thing that's called failing fast, because the faster you fail, the faster you improve, and the faster you move on.
Yeah.
So I say that to say, I think it's very, very important. And as you grow your businesses, now we are adding people to the team, we are employing people. So now it's not only just personal development at an individual level, but personal development at a corporate level, where we're saying, what skills does Oasis Brands as a whole have? And for us to go where we're going, what skills do we need to get? Right? So you're constantly asking yourself, okay, what are the new things that we need to learn? Who are the new people we need to add to the team in order to be able to get there? As is now, our horizons for Oasis have crossed over the borders.
Yeah.
Where we're looking at not only after establishing Malawi, and I was thinking, okay, how do we establish across the entire continent?
Actually, saw you like last part of last year.
Yes.
You actually had an African tour.
Yes. We called the Oasis Africa tour.
Wow.
Yes, and I think the whole idea for that was using the economics background. We understand that the entire African continent is being made into one large market through the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. And so we realized that there's an opportunity there, in that now the rest of the world will turn into Africa for its resources, for its talent, for its creativity, for its innovation.
True.
And there needs to be a company that understands just how all the different markets, because even though Africa is one continent, it's still 54 different countries.
Insane.
And I don't know how many other currencies, languages in the thousands, tribes in the 100,000s.
Yeah.
So there needs to be a company that understands all those individual countries separately and can aggregate it into actionable steps. And so over the next 5 years, what we're building at Oasis is a network of multiple oases in multiple countries. So we've given ourselves a target of opening 12 oases across Africa, Malawi being the first one, which we've done last year.
Yeah.
But the year 2026, so that in East Africa we have representation, in North Africa we have representation, in East and Southern Africa we have representation. But for us to get there, we know that what brought us here is not what will take us there.
Yeah.
So we're constantly asking ourselves, okay, what do we need to change now?
Yeah.
How to reinvent ourselves? What steps do we need to take? What new things are we supposed to learn? Who do we involve to be able to do that? So it's always about stepping out of your comfort zone, and doing all those things. But there are things you have to do in order to get there. So the more uncomfortable you feel, I think the more you're doing the right thing in that situation.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. So probably should be wrapping up now.
Yeah.
So probably my final question. Where do you see yourself in the next decade?
Okay.
Where do you see Oasis Brands in the next decade?
Okay.
Where do you see IK Foods in the next decade?
All right. At heart, I am a problem solver.
Yeah.
And I see myself always solving problems. In the next 10 years, I think Oasis Brands at that time would have been established across the continent of Africa, not only providing solutions in Africa itself, but in the world at large.
Yeah.
Our business is digital transformation, and what that means is we help organizations, companies, governments adopt emerging technologies,
Yeah.
and there'll always be emerging technologies.
Facts.
But what we are trying to do is maximize the amount of talent that is there in Africa, and allow them to have a process where they can now adopt those emerging technologies in their countries. So our goal, all-time goal, is to be in all the 54 countries in Africa.
Wow.
We're starting with 12 over the next 3 years.
Yeah.
And
2026.
it's not too far.
It's not too far. Now
Actually,
it's 2 years.
2 years to go.
Yeah.
So in 10 years' time, I think we should have done that goal. But I think most importantly, we want our impact to be seen by the number of people or the number of young people that we are able to, help expose to the industry. So we're looking to have worked with at least 500 to 700,000 young people across Africa, across all the countries, and allowed them to obviously participate in providing solutions, in the various countries.
Yeah.
Apart from that, I like to work with young people, and so I would also have, in my capacity in the next 10 years, to have also mentored and worked with various young people as well, either it being through financing and opening a venture capital firm, entrepreneurship development, and things like that. In terms of IK Foods, I think food is a problem that will always be a topic of discussion, regardless.
And I think that's like the biggest African problem right now.
Oh, definitely. Agriculture and food processing is one of the most lucrative and most important, businesses.
Yeah.
And over the next 10 years, I think our major goal is to set up multiple food processing stations. So as part of our offering, we realized that because our product is not only, for example, the product itself, but we realized that even the process in which the product is made is something of value. Now, when we started processing baobab, we looked for machinery and we couldn't find it because baobab jam never existed before.
Yeah.
So we actually had to go design our own equipment and make our own equipment. And so that's something that we can then also start to provide for other people, to empower other food processors to now start taking up, baobab as products. But apart from that, we would also like to establish multiple satellite processing factories, across Southern Africa and all the places that baobab is abundant of. And I'll just allow all those places to be able to process the product and be able to distribute it in the areas.
Yeah.
So I think over the next 10 years, that's where we see ourselves.
Wow.
Yeah.
I like the idea where you've talked about even coming up with machinery, because I feel like that's one area we as Africans are not daring enough to explore.
100%.
So, bro, I'm vouching for you. I'm praying for you, and I hope these things come to pass, because that's what we need.
No, yeah.
So as we wrap up, I have some 5 interesting questions.
Okay.
That I want to ask you. It doesn't say I have to do with business, but
just in general.
Just in general.
Okay.
So, first question.
Yeah.
If you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be and why?
Who would it be and why? Jesus Christ.
Oh, okay. Why?
Yeah. Why? Because his impact has been felt over thousands and thousands of years, and I don't think there's any other person who has ever walked on this earth that has had as much impact as he has.
And you continue to.
Exactly.
I like that answer. Second question. If your life was a movie, what would be the title?
The title of the movie.
And who would play you in it?
Who would play me in it? I think Mission Impossible.
Yeah.
Would definitely be the title of my movie.
Is it just because you like it?
No, I mean, I wouldn't even name what happened in each and every one of the movies. But I think when outside looking in, the circumstances that we've been able to do the things we have should have been impossible, right? Um, Around the same time we were starting business, Malawi was one of the poorest countries in the world.
Yeah.
And when other people look at Malawi, they wouldn't expect much to come from it.
Yeah.
They wouldn't expect that a teenager would be doing the things that we did. And so everything, I think, was pinned against us.
Mm-hmm.
But regardless, we're able to pull through and actually be able to create something that not only has wowed Malawians, but the world at large. I mean, we've received recognitions from all over the world, been featured in languages that I don't even understand. So it just goes to show that that's just how, the fact that people are surprised that such things are happening, it means that in the most normal instances, the things would have been or should have been impossible.
Yeah.
As to who would play me in a movie, I think the actor of Mission Impossible, Tom Cruise, does the job quite well. So it would be interesting to see me as a white man, but yeah, that's definitely.
I feel like the James Bond guy.
Yeah, that's another.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
I like that. All right, so what's a book, a movie, and a song that has greatly influenced you? So 3 things: a book, a movie
and a song.
Yeah.
A book has to be one of the first books that I read. It's a book that's an autobiography of Warren Buffett. It's called The Snowball.
Yeah.
And all the snowball says is, if you take a snowball on the top of a hill and you let it roll, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and time and after time becomes a large avalanche.
Yeah.
And it basically just talks about the importance of small steps, and that has been, a guiding principle in my life. In terms of a song that has had impact in my life, it's a bit difficult one because I'm not a big fan of songs.
Yeah.
So I don't think I would have an answer for that. A movie that has impacted my life. I wouldn't say impacted, but it just provided a bit of context into just being able to take advantage of a crisis, and that was The Wolf of Wall Street. Yeah, that movie, because I mean it's set in the economic depression, the crisis, and everything like that. And it just shows how they navigated that time to create an empire. So yeah, I think those are my answers to that. Yeah.
All right. So this takes us to the final question.
Okay.
Describe a dream or an inspiration you have, but you haven't shared to anyone yet.
A dream and an inspiration.
Or an inspiration
that I haven't shared to anybody yet.
Yeah. So that those who are watching and listening should be the lucky ones.
I don't think there's a dream or aspiration that I haven't shared to anybody. I'm a person who is, if I have an idea, I always share it with somebody.
Yeah.
And get that feedback on.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's any idea that I haven't shared. I'll rephrase the question and then say maybe what is my most exciting idea?
Yeah.
My most exciting idea is, as I said, I'm a problem solver, right? Which means that even though I'm doing one thing, I'm able to notice, problems in other industries. So my biggest aspiration is to have 100 companies.
Wow.
So companies in every industry, doing everything and anything, and inspiring the next generation.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Wow. Okay. So because of time, honestly, I loved it. I think it's one of those podcasts that I've said a lot.
Yeah.
Because I think there are times when you have to know you have to talk a lot, and there are times when you have to learn learn from someone.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, honestly, I'm just being inspired. Yeah. So finally, as we are wrapping up, what's the very final thing that you'd like to share to everyone and anyone who be watching this episode?
I think the final thing that I would say.
Maybe you can look.
Oh, I have to look in the
because
camera.
now we're talking to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I think the final thing that I would say to everybody watching, I don't know who are your listeners. Who's usually listening your podcast?
My podcast.
Yeah.
Specifically, it's entrepreneurship and leadership.
Okay.
So we have young people, even
Yeah.
older people, but who are passionate for leadership and entrepreneurship.
Yeah. All right. I think what I would say is each and every person gets ideas for a reason, right? And most of the times we think the ideas are maybe too far-fetched. But over the ideas that you could get, the fact that the idea has gotten to you means that there's something about it, right? All it requires is for you to actually find ways to make that first step. People talk about baby steps, right? And if you look at the journey of a baby from the time it crawls to the time it actually runs, if you look at Usain Bolt, he started crawling and went on to be the fastest man on earth. So that's a mentality that you need to have. Whatever idea that you have is given to you to be able to execute on it. And for you to execute, it doesn't mean that it has to be you alone. You can find other people who have the same idea, execute on it. It might be a stepping stone to take you to the next idea, but all you need to do is execute. And once you start executing, never stop executing.
Wow. All right, guys. So there you have it. It was an episode long in the making. Okay, of course, we've just shot it today, but it's been a while. Also, you have been expecting, and I believe it was worth the wait. So here's Ian Konje. I've been inspired personally, and I'm sure all of you are encouraged, are challenged, and I hope to see you guys go on, start your own businesses. Don't feel you're too young for anything. It's only 24, but you guys doing big things. So thank you so much for tuning in. If you have any questions, if you have any way you want to reach out to him, he's the CEO of Oasis Brands. I'm sure it's social media, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Exactly. Probably you can reach out, drop a comment or anything like that. Or you can come to their company. And if you need any services that they're offering, maybe you can just, lastly, of course, we probably have already given people glimpses.
Yeah.
But finally, maybe you can just tell them in details what your companies do, so that maybe if there's someone who's watching, they might need your services. This can also be an opportunity to reach out to you guys.
No, I think, in short, we are a largely diversified company. Oasis Brands Limited is split into subsidiary units. So you have Oasis Brands, but under Oasis Brands, you have Oasis Digital, which is a digital transformation company, and that does everything from specialized, personalized system software applications, and we're venturing into other services there as well. Apart from that, we have Oasis Ads, which is a digital marketing arm of our business. Apart from that, we have Oasis Studio, which also does a little bit of production. Apart from that, we have Oasis Create, that is a design advisory firm. And we are also will be launching other arms of our business as well.
Yeah.
So that's just a brief introduction of the services that we do provide. But above all, we're problem solvers. So we see ourselves doing things that we weren't doing before.
Yeah.
So if there's any problem that other businesses are facing that need solutions, they're always welcome to come, and we can have a conversation around that.
Yeah. Awesome. So there you have it. If you have any challenge in business, here you guys. So thank you once again. See you in the next episode.